I was organizing Victor's closet on a Tuesday afternoon when I found it. A receipt tucked into the inner pocket of his grey blazer, the one he wore to important meetings. My hands were full of winter clothes I was pulling out now that November had arrived in Atlanta, bringing with it that crisp chill that always made me think of new beginnings. Mitchell's Fine Jewelry. The name alone made my stomach drop. $8,247.50. Date of purchase, October 23rd, 3 weeks after my 62nd birthday. 3 weeks after Victor had come home at 9:30 with a grocery store bouquet and a card that read, "To my dear wife," in his neat handwriting. No dinner reservation. No gift, just flowers and an apology about a late client meeting. I sat down on the edge of our bed, the receipt trembling in my hand. We'd been married for 38 years. I knew what we could and couldn't afford. $8,000 wasn't pocket change, not even with Victor's senior partner salary. And more importantly, I didn't own any diamond jewelry worth that amount. My engagement ring had cost $800 back in 1987. Victor was a junior accountant then, and we were happy with what we could afford. The anniversary? That had passed in August with dinner at Carmine's, our usual Italian place. Christmas was still weeks away. My birthday had already come and gone with nothing but those wilted flowers. So, who was wearing an $8,000 piece of jewelry that my husband had purchased? Once you notice one thing, you start seeing everything else. It's like when you buy a red car and suddenly every third vehicle on the highway is red. They were always there, you just weren't paying attention. Victor had been coming home late. 3, sometimes 4 times a week. Client dinner, he'd say. Preparing for retirement transition, he'd explain. Tom needs help with the Henderson account. Always an excuse, always reasonable, always delivered with a tired smile that made me feel guilty for even wondering. His phone habits had changed too. He used to leave it on the kitchen counter, face up, pinging with notifications he'd check absently while we watched the evening news. Now it lived in his pocket, always on silent, screen facing down when he did set it on a surface. 2 months ago, he'd changed the passcode. When I asked why, he said the company required it for security. New IT policy, he'd shrugged. Then there was the cologne. A bottle appeared on his dresser in September. Tom Ford, expensive, not the drugstore brand he'd worn for years. I hadn't bought it. He said Tom had given it to him as an early retirement gift. But would Tom Martinez, who wore Old Spice and thought anything over $20 for cologne was highway robbery, really buy Tom Ford? And the clothes. Victor had always been neat, professional, but suddenly he was meticulous. Shirts were pressed with military precision. Ties were silk, new, colors that actually looked good on him instead of the boring blues and grays he'd worn forever. His hair, which he'd let go silver naturally, was now regularly trimmed, styled even. He looked good, better than he had in years. He looked like a man trying to impress someone. Last week, I'd been in bed reading when his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He was in the shower. I glanced over. It was nearly 11 at night. Who would text so late? The preview screen lit up. Tuesday lunch confirmed. Can't wait. V. V. Who was V? I heard the water shut off and quickly looked back at my book. Victor came out in his pajamas, grabbed his phone without looking at it, and climbed into bed. Good book? He asked, kissing my forehead. I'd responded, unable to form actual words around the stone in my throat. I started paying attention to our bank statements. Victor had always handled the finances. He was the accountant after all. But I had access to everything. I just rarely looked. Now I looked. $300 at Bella Notte, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. We hadn't been there, I would have remembered $150 at a day spa I'd never heard of. $500 in cash withdrawals. Every Friday, like clockwork. $200 at a wine shop that specialized in expensive French vintages. Victor drank beer. One evening over dinner, take out Chinese because I couldn't bring myself to cook, I tested the waters. So, I said, pushing lo mein around my plate, have you thought about what you want to do when you retire? We always talked about traveling. Victor looked up from his kung pao chicken. For just a second, something flickered across his face. Guilt, sadness, then it was gone, replaced by his professional smile. You know, I haven't really had time to think about it. The transition is taking up all my energy. We could finally take that trip to Europe, I pressed. Remember, Paris, Rome, all the places we said we'd go someday? Yeah, maybe. He reached for the soy sauce. Let's see how things shake out after the retirement party. The retirement party? Right. The party he'd told me about 2 weeks ago. The party that was this Friday. The party I apparently wasn't invited to. It had been a casual mention over coffee on a Saturday morning, the kind of moment that should have been exciting, celebratory. Victor looked up from the newspaper. Yes, he still read the physical paper, drove me crazy with the ink on his fingers, and said, So, the firm is throwing a retirement party for me. Next Friday at the Golden Oak. The Golden Oak. That was the fanciest restaurant in Atlanta. The kind of place with more forks than you knew what to do with and wine lists thick as phone books. I'd set down my coffee cup, immediately thinking about what I'd wear. That's wonderful. I should get a new dress. The blue one has that stain. Angela. Victor's voice had been gentle, apologetic. About that, the firm has this new policy. It's an employee-only event. Insurance reasons, they said. Liability concerns with spouses at company functions. I'd stared at him. Employee only? Victor, you're retiring after 40 years. They don't want wives there? I know, honey. I was surprised too. He'd reached across the table, taken my hand. But you know how corporate policies are. They're cracking down on everything these days. Something about reducing company exposure to lawsuits. That seems... I'd searched for the word. Cold. After everything you've given that company. It is what it is. He'd squeezed my hand. But I'll take you out Saturday night. Just us. Anywhere you want. We'll have our own celebration. I'd wanted to believe him. After 38 years of marriage, you want to believe your husband. You want to trust that the man you've built a life with, raised children with, survived financial struggles and family losses with, is telling you the truth. But something felt off. And that something kept me awake that night, staring at the ceiling while Victor snored softly beside me. I ran into Barbara Martinez at Whole Foods on Tuesday. Barbara was married to Tom Martinez, Victor's closest friend at the firm and his golf buddy for the past 15 years. We'd had countless dinners together, attended each other's children's graduations, exchanged Christmas cards with yearly family photos. She was examining avocados in the produce section when I spotted her. Barbara, I called out, steering my cart toward her. She looked up and smiled. Angela, How are you? Getting ready for the big party Friday? My cart stopped moving. The party? Victor's retirement. She selected 2 avocados, put them in her basket. I've been trying to figure out what to wear. Tom said it's pretty formal. I'm thinking my burgundy dress, but I don't know. The floor felt unstable beneath my feet. You're going? Barbara looked at me, confusion crossing her face. Well, yeah. Tom said all the partners and their spouses are invited. It's a big deal. 40 years. She paused, studying my expression. Wait, you are going, right? I opened my mouth, closed it, smiled, though it felt like my face might crack. Of course, I wasn't sure what you'd heard about the dress code. Oh, cocktail attire, the usual. She touched my arm. Are you okay? You look a little pale. I'm fine. Just, busy week. I backed my cart up. I should go. Forgot something in the dairy section. I didn't go to the dairy section. I left my half-full cart in the cereal aisle and walked straight out to my car. All the partners and their spouses are invited. Victor had lied to me. Not a misunderstanding, not a miscommunication. A deliberate, calculated lie. He didn't want me at his retirement party. The question was, why? I sat in my car in the Whole Foods parking lot for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, mind racing through possibilities. An affair seemed obvious. The jewelry, the late nights, the lies, the cologne, the mysterious V who texted him at 11 at night, it all pointed in one direction. But this was Victor. My Victor. The man who cried at our children's weddings, who still kissed me goodbye every morning, even if it had become perfunctory, who told our grandchildren stories about how grandma had believed in him when he was just a struggling night school student with big dreams. Could that man really be having an affair? I needed to know. I needed to see for myself. The idea came to me as I sat there, watching people load groceries into their trunks. The Golden Oak, a fancy restaurant. They'd need servers, wouldn't they? Staff to handle an event this size? I pulled out my phone and Googled Golden Oak restaurant careers. Their job listings showed they hired through citywide staffing agency for special events. My heart started beating faster. I'd been a waitress once, a lifetime ago. 20 years of slinging plates at Giovanni's Italian restaurant, putting Victor through night school, saving every penny for our future. My feet still remembered how to balance a tray. My hands still knew how to hold plates properly. I could do this, but could I? I was 62 years old. I hadn't worked a restaurant shift in decades. What if I couldn't keep up? What if someone recognized me? Then again, when was the last time anyone really looked at me? Victor certainly hadn't. Not lately. At company parties, I was furniture. The dutiful wife, smiling in the background while the men talked business. Invisible. Maybe I could use that invisibility. I started the car and drove straight to citywide staffing. The citywide staffing office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. A woman in her 40s with bottle red hair looked up from her computer when I walked in. Help you? I'm looking for temporary serving work, I said. I saw that you staff events at the Golden Oak. She sized me up. Experience? 20 years at Giovanni's. I stopped working to raise my kids, but I let the sentence trail off, hoping she'd fill in the blanks. Needing extra money for the holidays, bored at home. It didn't matter what she assumed. We do need people this week, actually. Big corporate event Friday night. She pulled up a form on her computer. You'd need to do 2 trial shifts first, tonight and Wednesday. If you work out, you can do the Friday event. My pulse quickened. Tonight works. She handed me paperwork. Fill this out. Be at the Golden Oak at 5 p.m. Ask for Jennifer Williams, the event manager. Wear all black. Pants, shirt, comfortable shoes. No perfume. Minimal jewelry. 2 hours later, I stood in the Golden Oak service area, trying to remember how to properly hold a serving tray. Jennifer Williams was a no-nonsense woman in her 30s who ran the training like a drill sergeant. You stack plates like this, she demonstrated. Never more than 4 at a time. Keep your palm flat, use your other hand to stabilize. You serve from the left, clear from the right. Always address guests as sir or ma'am. Never interrupt conversations. Invisible but attentive. That's the goal. I picked up the tray. It was heavier than I remembered. But muscle memory kicked in. My wrist found the right angle. My fingers the right position. I carried it across the room without wobbling. Not bad, Jennifer said. You have done this before. That night, I served a 50th anniversary party. My feet ached in my sensible black flats by the end of the shift. My lower back complained. But I'd done it. I'd been invisible, efficient, professional. Not one person at that party really looked at me. They looked through me, past me, around me. Perfect. Wednesday's shift went even smoother. Jennifer complimented my efficiency. Friday's the big one, she said. Henderson Associates retirement party, 60 guests, formal service. You up for it? Absolutely, I said, hoping my voice didn't betray the hammering of my heart. At home, I prepared my disguise. I bought a brown wig at a theatre supply store. My natural hair had gone silver years ago, and the dark color would make me look years younger. I found my old reading glasses with thick black frames, completely different from the delicate wire-rimmed ones I usually wore. I practiced speaking in a slightly lower voice, with a hint of a southern accent I'd picked up from my mother's side of the family but had suppressed years ago. I hired a makeup artist for Friday afternoon. I'm going to a costume party, I told her. I need to look completely different from my usual self. She was an artist. When she finished, I stared at a stranger in the mirror. Darker eyebrows, contouring that changed the shape of my face. Lipstick in a shade I'd never wear. With the wig and glasses, even I barely recognized myself. If I couldn't recognize me, how would Victor? Thursday night, I made my final preparations. Victor was asleep by 10. He'd been exhausted lately. Whatever he was doing was wearing him out. I waited until his breathing was deep and regular, that soft snore that told me he was truly out. Then I went to his study. His laptop was on the desk, closed. I opened it carefully, the screen illuminating my face in the dark room. Password required. Victor had changed it months ago. I didn't know the new one, but I knew my husband. He wasn't creative with passwords. They were always something meaningful, easy to remember. Our wedding date, his employee number, his mother's birthday, I tried them all. Failed. Then I thought of Emma, our granddaughter born last year. David and Karen's first child, the light of Victor's life. He kept a framed photo of her on his desk, updated monthly as she grew. Emma birth 2015. The laptop unlocked. I felt a wave of guilt, quickly suppressed. If Victor had nothing to hide, I'd apologize later. If he did, well, then this was justified. His email was open. I scrolled through the inbox, scanning for anything unusual. Most of it was work stuff, dry corporate correspondence. But then I saw a thread with Tom Martinez, dated from last week. Tom, everything set for Friday? Victor, as long as nothing else delays. She deserves this after 38 years. Tom, the presentation looks great. You're a good man, Vic. Victor, I hope she thinks so. Who was she? Me? Or someone else? I kept scrolling, found another thread, this one with someone named Victoria Sinclair. The name wasn't familiar. I clicked it open. Victoria, thank you again for Tuesday's lunch. The planning session was so helpful. Victor, my pleasure. I want everything to be perfect. Victoria, it will be. I promise. KTA, she won't see it coming. Victor, I couldn't do this without your help. You've been invaluable. Victoria, that's what friends are for. See you Friday. My hands were shaking. Tuesday lunches, secret planning sessions. She won't see it coming. I opened a new browser tab and searched Victoria Sinclair Henderson Associates. Her LinkedIn profile appeared immediately. 34 years old, beautiful, honey blonde hair, bright smile, professional photo taken in front of a beach sunset. Her title, Partner, Henderson and Associates, promoted 6 months ago. I clicked through her photos. There were dozens. Office events, business trips, and in several of them, standing beside her with his arm around her shoulders in a friendly mentor-like way was my husband. The caption on one photo taken in Hawaii. Best mentor ever. Couldn't have done it without you, Victor. To Victor. Posted 3 weeks ago, right around the time he bought that bracelet. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark study, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Tomorrow night, I would learn the truth. Tomorrow night, disguised as a waitress at my own husband's retirement party, I would discover whether the man I'd loved for 38 years was planning to leave me for a woman half my age. I just had to make it through one more day. Friday arrived with the kind of crisp November evening that made Atlanta feel almost autumnal. I spent the afternoon at the makeup artist's studio, transforming myself into someone else. Someone my husband wouldn't recognize. You look amazing, the makeup artist said, stepping back to admire her work. Like a completely different person. I stared at my reflection. She was right. The woman looking back at me had darker, fuller eyebrows, contoured cheeks that changed the shape of my face, lipstick in a deep rose shade I'd never wear. I'd always preferred subtle pinks. The brown wig fell in soft waves around my face, making me look younger, softer. With the thick framed glasses, I could have been anyone. Not Angela Lewis, not Victor's wife of 38 years, just another server at an upscale restaurant. I arrived at the Golden Oak at 5 p.m., 2 hours before guests were scheduled to arrive. The back entrance led through a narrow hallway into the bustling kitchen, where chefs shouted orders and the air smelled of garlic and wine reductions. You made it! Jennifer Williams, appeared beside me, clipboard in hand. "Here, put this on." She handed me a crisp white shirt and black apron. "You'll be working Section C tonight. That's the main dining area near the head tables. Big event, lots of VIPs. Think you can handle it?" "Absolutely," I said, hoping my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "Good. Remember, invisible but attentive. They're not here to notice you. They're here to celebrate." She checked her watch. "Guests start arriving at 7. Champagne service begins immediately. You good with opening bottles?" "I've got it." I changed quickly in the staff bathroom, adjusting the apron, checking my reflection one more time. The disguise held. I didn't look like myself. I didn't feel like myself. Maybe that was better. Maybe Angela Lewis couldn't do what needed to be done tonight, but this stranger in the mirror could. By 6:30, the ballroom was transformed. White roses in crystal vases adorned every table. String lights twinkled overhead like stars. The bar gleamed with rows of champagne flutes waiting to be filled. A projection screen stood at the front of the room, ready for whatever presentation Henderson and Associates had planned. At 6:50, the first guests began trickling in. I positioned myself near the entrance to Section C, champagne tray balanced perfectly on my left hand, just like I'd practiced. My heart hammered against my ribs. Tom Martinez arrived first with his wife Barbara. She wore the burgundy dress she'd mentioned, and she looked lovely. They walked right past me. Tom took a champagne flute from my tray without even glancing at my face. "Thank you," he said absently, already turning to greet someone else. 30 years of backyard barbecues, holiday parties, and watching our children grow up together. He didn't recognize me. I was really invisible. More guests arrived. James Peterson, the CFO, with his wife Claire. Susan Miller from accounting with her husband David. Not to be confused with my son David, though the coincidence made my chest ache. Everywhere I looked, couples, partners, spouses supporting spouses at a major career milestone. The lie Victor had told me burned hotter with each couple that walked through those doors. At 7:20, my husband arrived. I saw him before he saw me, not that he would have recognized me anyway. Victor wore his charcoal grey suit, the one I'd bought him 3 Christmases ago. His silver hair was perfectly combed, catching the light. He'd shaved carefully. I could tell from the smooth line of his jaw. He looked distinguished, handsome. Every inch the successful senior partner who'd given 40 years to his firm. He looked happy. That was what hurt most. The smile on his face was genuine, unforced. The kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. He moved through the room, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. His posture relaxed and confident. I circulated with my champagne tray, staying close but not too close. Near enough to hear conversations, but far enough to avoid direct interaction. A pillar near the bar became my observation post. 40 years, someone said to Victor. "That's a hell of a run." "Felt like 40 minutes, Victor replied, and everyone laughed. "Liar," I thought. "You know exactly how long 40 years is. Long enough to forget the woman who stood by you through all of them." At 7:45, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations paused. Heads turned toward the entrance. She had arrived. Victoria Sinclair walked into the ballroom like she owned it. Her red dress was simple but stunning, fitted, elegant, the kind of thing you'd see in a fashion magazine. Her honey blonde hair cascaded over bare shoulders. She wore minimal jewelry. Small diamond studs, a delicate gold bracelet. She didn't need more. She was 34 years old and beautiful, and she knew it without being arrogant about it. I hated her immediately. Then I hated myself for hating her. Victoria's eyes scanned the room and landed on Victor. Her face lit up. That same bright, genuine smile from her LinkedIn photos. She walked straight toward him, and the crowd parted to let her through. Victor! Her voice carried across the room, warm and southern tinged. Georgia, maybe, or South Carolina. Congratulations! She reached him and did something that made my grip tighten on the champagne tray. She put her hand on his shoulder, squeezed gently, and leaned in to say something I couldn't hear. Victor's reaction was strange. He didn't lean into her touch. Instead, he seemed to flinch. No, not quite. He looked uncomfortable, sad even. His smile faltered for just a second before he recovered. Victoria, he said, loud enough for others to hear. Thank you for coming. They stood together as Tom Martinez joined them, then James Peterson, then a cluster of junior partners I didn't recognize. Victoria was the center of attention, gracious and poised, but her eyes kept drifting back to Victor, checking on him, making sure he was okay. It was the kind of attention you paid to someone you cared about. I retreated to the kitchen, my hands shaking too badly to carry the tray safely. I set it down on a prep counter and leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. You okay? Another server, a young guy, maybe 25, gave me a concerned look. Fine, I managed. Just need a minute. First time working a big event? I nodded, not trusting my voice. It gets easier, he said kindly. Just remember, they're not looking at you. They never are. If only he knew how true that was. By 8 o'clock, dinner service was underway. I'd steadied myself enough to return to Section C, serving appetizers and refilling wine glasses. The key was to keep moving, keep busy, not think too hard about what I was seeing. Victor sat at the main table with Tom, Barbara, James, and Victoria. Every time I approached to clear plates or refill drinks, I strained to hear their conversation. Transition has been smoother than expected, James was saying. That's because you're leaving it in capable hands, Tom replied, raising his glass toward Victoria. She blushed slightly. I have enormous shoes to fill? You'll do great, Victor said quietly, too quietly, like he was forcing the words. At 8:30, Tom stood and tapped his wine glass with a fork. The room fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention. He waited for the last conversations to die down. We're here tonight to celebrate an extraordinary career. 40 years ago, Victor Lewis walked into Henderson and Associates as a junior accountant with a night school degree and more ambition than sense. Laughter rippled through the room. I stood by my pillar, forgotten, watching my husband's face. Over 4 decades, Victor has been more than a colleague. He's been a mentor, a friend, and the heart of this firm. The Henderson merger of 2008, that was Victor's strategic genius. Our client retention rate, which is still the highest in the industry, Victor's relationship building, the firm's reputation for integrity, that comes from the top, from men like Victor, who never cut corners, never compromised their values. Tom paused, his voice growing emotional. Vic, you've been like a brother to me. This firm won't be the same without you here every day. But we're grateful that even in retirement, you've agreed to stay on as a special consultant. Your wisdom, your experience, we're not ready to let that go completely. More applause. Victor nodded, smiling. But I saw it now. The tightness around his eyes, the way he gripped his wine glass. And speaking of the future, Tom continued, I want to introduce someone who represents everything Victor has built. Victoria Sinclair joined us 3 years ago, and in that time, she's proven herself exceptional. Under Victor's mentorship, she's grown into a leader we can trust with our future. Victoria, would you come up here? Victoria stood, smoothing her red dress, and walked to the front of the room. The applause was enthusiastic. She waited for it to die down before speaking. Thank you all so much. Her voice was steady, professional, but I could hear the emotion underneath. I'm honored and honestly terrified to be stepping into this role. Victor's legacy it's intimidating. She looked directly at him, and her expression softened. When I joined Henderson and Associates 3 years ago, I was a mess. I'd just gone through a divorce that nearly destroyed me. I was fighting for custody of my daughter, questioning everything about myself and my career. I almost quit in my first month. This was news. The room was silent, everyone leaning forward. Victor took me aside one day and said something I'll never forget. Strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every single time. He became more than my mentor. She paused, her voice catching. He became the father figure I lost when my dad passed away, when I was 20. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He saw potential I couldn't see. Victoria's hand went to her heart. Everything I am as a professional, I owe to Victor's guidance, his patience, his wisdom, and his example of what real integrity looks like. As she walked back to her seat, her hand brushed Victor's shoulder again, that same gentle, grateful touch. And this time, I saw his reaction more clearly. He closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath like he was in pain, and when he opened them again, they were glistening. My husband was crying, not from joy, from something else, something that looked like guilt. The speeches concluded, and the party shifted into its social phase. People mingled, drinks flowed, laughter echoed off the high ceilings. I resumed circulating with trays of hors d'oeuvres, my mind racing. Victoria's speech had thrown me. The divorce, the custody battle, the dead father, these weren't the details of a mistress. They were the struggles of a woman who'd been through hell and found an unlikely mentor. But that didn't explain the jewelry, the secret meetings, the lies. I needed to talk to her. Victoria had stepped out onto the balcony that overlooked the Atlanta skyline. Through the glass doors, I could see her leaning against the railing, alone for the first time all evening. She'd kicked off her heels, they sat neatly beside her, and was rubbing one foot with her hand. I grabbed a bottle of sparkling water and went outside. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said in my practiced lower voice with its hint of southern accent. "Would you like something to drink?" Victoria turned, and up close, I could see the exhaustion on her face. The smile she'd worn all evening had slipped away. "Oh, thank you. Water would be perfect." I poured her a glass, my hands surprisingly steady. Those shoes look painful. She laughed, accepting the water. Beauty is pain, right? I should have worn something more sensible. But she shrugged. Big night, wanted to look the part. You look beautiful, I said. That was a lovely speech you gave. Thanks. She sipped the water. I was nervous. Public speaking isn't really my thing. But Victor deserved to hear how much he's meant to me. This was my opening. You two seem close? He's been incredible. Victoria's expression grew tender. I don't know if you heard, but I went through a really ugly divorce 2 years ago. My ex-husband tried to claim I was an unfit mother because she hesitated, studying me. Sorry, you probably don't want to hear all this. I don't mind, I said. Slow night for me anyway. Victoria looked out over the city lights. Because I came out as gay during the marriage, which I know I should have figured that out before I got married and had a kid. But life doesn't always work that cleanly, you know. I nearly dropped the water bottle. My ex completely lost it, Victoria continued, not noticing my reaction. Tried to take full custody, claimed Sophia, my daughter, would be damaged by living with me. It was the worst year of my life. And Victor, her voice softened. He connected me with a lawyer, helped me prepare for court, checked in on me constantly. He didn't have to do any of that. I was just a junior associate. But he treated me like family. That's really kind of him, I managed. He reminds me of my dad. Victoria smiled sadly. Same steady presence, same kindness. My dad died of a heart attack when I was in college. I didn't realize how much I missed having that kind of support until Victor offered it. She turned to look back through the glass doors at the party. His wife is a lucky woman. My throat tightened. His wife? Angela. That's her name, right? Victoria took another sip of water. He talks about her all the time. 48 years together. Wait, no, 38. I always get that wrong. But still, can you imagine finding someone who believes in you that completely? I couldn't speak. My carefully constructed assumptions were crumbling. He told me once that she's the only reason he succeeded. Victoria continued. She worked 2 jobs to put him through night school, raised their kids basically alone while he built his career. He said, she paused, remembering. He said, every good thing in my life exists because Angela believed in me first. Tears were forming behind my glasses. I blinked them back furiously. He sounds like he loves her very much. He does. You can just tell, you know, the way he lights up when he talks about her. Victoria checked her watch. I should get back inside. Thank you for listening to me ramble. What's your name? Marie? I lied. Well, Marie, you're a good listener. Hope you're getting paid well for tonight. She slipped her heels back on and went inside, leaving me alone on the balcony with my confusion and my rapidly dissolving certainty. I pulled myself together and went back inside. The party was in full swing. Dinner had been cleared, dessert was being served, and people were loosening their ties and letting the wine do its work. I was clearing plates from a side table when I noticed it. Victor's leather messenger bag, the one he'd carried for 15 years, sitting unattended on a chair. I glanced around. Victor was across the room, deep in conversation with James Peterson. Tom was at the bar. No one was watching. Before I could second guess myself, I grabbed the bag and carried it to a quiet corner behind a decorative screen. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were the usual things: his reading glasses, breath mints, a legal pad. But underneath was a thick manila folder labeled Surprise Confidential in Victor's neat handwriting. I opened it. Travel brochures, dozens of them. A villa in Tuscany with a cooking school attached. A luxury hotel in Paris near the Opera Garnier. A yacht tour of the Greek islands. Each brochure was annotated in Victor's handwriting with notes and dates. Angela always wanted to learn Italian cooking, he'd written on the Tuscany brochure. She used to talk about seeing La Traviata at a real opera house on the Paris one. Our first date, she said the sunset over water was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Let's give her 100 more sunsets on the Greek islands package. My vision blurred. I flipped through more papers. A detailed itinerary for an 8-week trip. First-class flights, private tours, Michelin-starred restaurants. Every detail thought out, every destination chosen with care. There was a printout of an email from a travel agent. Miss Lewis, as requested, the villa in Tuscany is now confirmed for May-June. The cooking classes are booked for 3 mornings per week, leaving afternoons free for exploring. The total comes to $42,000, as discussed. $42,000 for a trip he'd been planning in secret. I found another document, a list titled Things Angela Deserves. I recognized the handwriting from 40 years of grocery lists and birthday cards. To feel like a priority for once. Adventures she's always dreamed of. Time where she doesn't have to worry about anything. To remember why we fell in love. To know that she's the reason for everything good in my life. A hand touched my shoulder. I jumped, nearly dropping the folder. Excuse me, but that's private property. I turned. Tom Martinez stood there, his expression a mixture of concern and suspicion. What are you doing with Victor's bag? My mind went blank. He asked me to hold it. Tom's eyes narrowed. He looked at me more carefully, and I saw the exact moment recognition flickered across his face. Wait, you look familiar. Have we met before? No, sir, I don't think. But he was still staring, and I could see him putting pieces together. The way I held myself. Something about my voice. 30 years of friendship was hard to disguise completely. Angela, he said uncertainly. Is that Angela? I panicked. That's the only explanation for what happened next. I shoved the folder back into Victor's bag and turned to flee, but in my haste, I didn't see the server behind me carrying a tray of red wine. We collided. The tray went flying. Wine splashed across the white tablecloth, across the floor, and across the cream-colored dress of Elizabeth Morrison, James Peterson's wife. She shrieked. The music stopped. Conversations died. Everyone turned to look. Oh my God! Elizabeth stood up, wine dripping down her dress. Look what you've done. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'm so sorry. I grabbed napkins, trying to help, but she batted my hands away. Get away from me, Jennifer! Where's the manager? Jennifer Williams appeared, her face red with anger and embarrassment. Mrs. Morrison, I'm terribly sorry. We'll pay for the dry cleaning, of course. Dry cleaning? This dress is Vera Wang. It's ruined. The commotion had drawn a crowd, including Victor. He pushed through the gathering people, concerned. Elizabeth, are you okay? Your server just dumped wine all over me. Victor looked at me for the first time that evening. Really looked at me. Our eyes met across the space of 5 feet that might as well have been a chasm. I saw it happen in slow motion, his brain processing what his eyes were seeing, the glasses, the wig, the uniform. But underneath all of it, the face he'd woken up next to for 38 years. His expression went from concern to confusion to shock to horror. Angela? His voice was barely a whisper, then louder. Angela? He stepped forward, grabbed my shoulders. What are you doing here? Why are you... He pulled off my glasses, stared at the brown wig, touched my face like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Victor, what's going on? Tom had moved closer. You know this server? This is my wife. Victor's voice shook. This is Angela. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Barbara Martinez's hand flew to her mouth. Victoria pushed through to see what was happening. Everyone was staring. Your wife? Elizabeth Morrison looked between us. Why is your wife working as a server at your retirement party? I couldn't answer. My throat had closed. Hot tears burned behind my eyes. Angela, please. Victor's hands were still on my shoulders. Why are you dressed like this? What's happening? The dam broke. What's happening? My voice came out too loud, too raw. What's happening, Victor? I jerked away from his touch. You lied to me. You told me spouses weren't allowed tonight. Victor's face went pale. Angela, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear the explanation. I was shaking now, adrenaline and hurt and humiliation coursing through me. I'd love to know why I had to disguise myself and get a job as a server just to attend my own husband's retirement party. Oh my God, Barbara whispered. You've been lying for months. The words poured out, unstoppable. Late nights, secret phone calls, mysterious charges on our credit card, an $8,000 bracelet I've never seen, lunch meetings with... I turned, found Victoria in the crowd. With her, 2 years you've been meeting her, and I never even knew her name. Victoria looked stricken. Mrs. Lewis, I swear I don't want to hear it. I was crying now, not caring who saw. You don't get to take my husband and then stand there looking innocent. She's not. Angela, please. Victor reached for me again, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. My voice cracked. 38 years, Victor. 38 years I believed in you. I worked 2 jobs so you could go to school. I raised our children alone while you built your career. I smiled through 1,000 boring dinners and never complained when you missed anniversaries and birthdays and dance recitals. Tears were streaming down my face, mixing with the makeup, probably ruining my disguise completely. I didn't care anymore. I thought we were partners. I thought we were in this together, but you couldn't even invite me to celebrate your retirement. You had to lie to me, exclude me, make me feel like I didn't matter. You do matter, Victor said, and his own voice was breaking now. Angela, you matter more than anything. Then why? I spread my arms, gesturing at my ridiculous outfit, at the crowd of people watching our marriage implode. Why would you do this? Was it not enough to have an affair? Did you have to humiliate me too? I'm not having an affair. Then explain the bracelet. Explain the lies. Explain her. I pointed at Victoria again. Victoria stepped forward, her face pale but determined. Mrs. Lewis, please listen. I'm not having an affair with your husband. I'm gay. I came out during my divorce. That's public record, you can check. Victor has been helping me through custody issues with my daughter. That's all. I stared at her. You're gay. Yes. She held my gaze. Victor reminds me of my father. That's the only reason I look at him the way I do. I respect him. I'm grateful to him. But there is nothing romantic between us, I promise you. The fight drained out of me. I looked at Victor, who was crying now too, and at Tom and Barbara and all these people I'd known for years, all of them watching me fall apart. I need to leave, I said. Angela? Wait, Victor started. But I was already pushing through the crowd, running for the exit. I heard Victor calling my name, heard footsteps following me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I burst through the restaurant's front doors into the cold November night, gulping air, trying to breathe through the sobs that racked my body. I'd just destroyed my husband's retirement party. I'd publicly accused him of infidelity in front of his colleagues. I'd humiliated us both, and I still didn't know the truth. Behind me, the door opened. Victor stood there in his charcoal suit, his face wet with tears. Please, he said, please let me explain. Please let me tell you everything. I looked at my husband of 38 years and realized I had no idea who he was anymore. Okay, I whispered. Tell me everything. We stood outside the Golden Oak, the cold November air biting through my thin server's uniform. Victor had thrown his suit jacket around my shoulders, but I was still shaking. From cold, from adrenaline, from the aftermath of what I'd just done. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket. Melissa, our daughter. Don't answer it, Victor said quietly. But I already had. Hello? Mom, Dad just texted me. He said something happened at the party. Are you okay? Where are you? I looked at Victor, whose face was etched with pain and regret. I'm with your father, sweetheart. I'm fine. Mom, what's going on? Dad sounded really upset. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry. I hung up before she could ask more questions. The silence between Victor and me stretched like a wire pulled too tight. I'm going to get my car, I said. We should talk at home. Angela, please just give me 5 minutes. Right here, right now. He grabbed my hand. I need you to know, the restaurant door opened again. Victoria appeared, holding her small evening clutch and my purse, the one I'd hidden in the staff area. I thought you might need this, she said, handing it to me. Then she looked at Victor. Do you want me to tell her about the meetings? Victoria, you don't have to. Yes, I do. She turned to me, her expression earnest. Mrs. Lewis, the Tuesday lunches your husband has been having with me, we weren't alone. There was always a third person. Sometimes a travel agent named Patricia, sometimes a lawyer named Robert Chen, sometimes both. I frowned. A travel agent? A lawyer? Victoria glanced at Victor, who nodded reluctantly. Your husband hired Robert Chen to help me with my custody case, Victoria explained. Robert specializes in LGBTQ plus family law. He's expensive, really expensive, and I couldn't afford him. Victor paid for everything. He didn't want me to know at first, but Robert told me because he needed my consent for Victor to be involved in the case strategy. My mind reeled. Victor paid for your lawyer. $20,000, Victoria said. It saved my daughter. My ex-husband was trying to prove I was an unfit mother because I'm gay. Robert helped me build a case that protected Sophia. I got joint custody because of him, because of Victor. She paused, her voice wavering. The travel agent Patricia was there because Victor wanted my help planning something. He said he trusted my judgment about romantic destinations because I'd planned my honeymoon years ago. He wanted a woman's perspective on what would be meaningful. Planning what? I asked, though pieces were starting to click together. Victor pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. His hands trembled as he held it out to me. I've been planning this. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a printed itinerary. Lewis European Adventure, May 15th to July 10th, Tuscany, Villa Rosa with cooking classes, Paris, Hotel Plaza Athénée, opera tickets, Greek islands, private yacht tour, 8 weeks, first class, everything you ever said you wanted to do. The bracelet, Victor said softly, pulling out a small jewelry box, was supposed to be your retirement gift. Or my retirement gift to you, I guess, for 38 years of making my career possible. He opened the box. The diamond bracelet sparkled even in the dim streetlight. Hanging from it was a small gold charm engraved with coordinates. 30.0809 DGN, 81.091 DW, he said. Savannah, the beach where we had our first date, where you told me you wanted to see the world someday, and I promised I'd show it to you. His voice broke. I'm 40 years late keeping that promise. I stared at the bracelet, at the itinerary, my thoughts fragmenting. But why lie about the party? Why tell me I couldn't come? Victor took a deep breath. Because I'm dying, Angela. The world stopped. What? He pulled out another envelope, this one worn at the edges like he'd been carrying it for weeks. Medical documents. I scanned them with growing horror. Coronary artery disease, moderate blockage, stress test results, doctor's recommendations. 3 months ago, I had chest pains, Victor said. Thought it was indigestion. Dr. Reynolds ran tests. The arteries around my heart are narrowing. I need to reduce stress, change my lifestyle, maybe surgery eventually. Victor, I couldn't form words. The doctor said I probably have 20 good years left if I'm careful. But it made me think about time. Really think about it. Tears ran down his face. 40 years I put work first. 40 years you sacrificed everything for me. I wanted to spend however much time I have left putting you first. Showing you that you are the most important thing in my life. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out as a sob. Because I didn't want you to worry. I wanted to give you joy, not fear. He gripped my hands. The party tonight, Tom was supposed to bring you in at 9. I had a whole presentation planned, photos of our life together. Then I was going to show the travel plans and ask if you'd spend the next chapter of our lives actually living, not just surviving. But the villa confirmation kept getting delayed, Victoria added quietly. The Greek yacht tour had a scheduling conflict. Every time Victor thought everything was ready, something else went wrong. He got paranoid that you'd figure it out if you were here tonight, that you'd ask questions and ruin the surprise. Victor pulled me into his arms. I resisted for a moment, then collapsed against him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered into my hair. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was being romantic. I thought I was finally doing something right. Instead, I made you think I didn't love you anymore. I made you doubt everything we've built." I cried into his shoulder, ruining his expensive suit with my tears and makeup. "You have a heart condition and you didn't tell me. We're supposed to be partners, Victor. We're supposed to face things together." I know I was wrong about all of it. Victoria quietly slipped away, leaving us alone in the cold night. We drove home in separate cars. I'd left mine at the stuffing agency. When I walked into our house, Victor was already in the living room, the folder marked surprise spread across the coffee table. I'd stripped off the wig and glasses in the car, but I still wore the server's uniform. I felt exposed, ridiculous, and utterly exhausted. 8 weeks in Europe, I said, looking at the brochures. $85,000. Most of my retirement bonus, Victor confirmed. I wanted to spend it on us. I picked up the list he'd made. Things Angela deserves. My vision blurred reading it. "You remember the cooking classes? I mentioned that once, 20 years ago. I remember everything you've ever wanted." Victor sat on the couch, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. "That's the problem. I remember and I never delivered. I kept telling myself someday we'd do these things. Then I got that diagnosis and realized someday might never come." I sat across from him, maintaining distance. "I'm still angry, Victor." "You should be." "I'm angry that you lied. I'm angry that you hid a health crisis from me. I'm angry that you made me doubt myself, doubt us, doubt everything." My voice rose. "Do you know what these past months have been like? Thinking I was losing you? Wondering what I'd done wrong? You did nothing wrong. I thought I wasn't enough." The words exploded out of me. "I'm 62 years old, Victor." I look in the mirror and see wrinkles and grey hair and everything sagging. And then I see you getting more handsome, more distinguished, spending time with a beautiful 34-year-old woman who's gay and sees me as a father figure. I know that now, but for weeks I thought I'd become invisible to you, that you'd realized you could do better. Victor moved to kneel in front of me, taking my hands. "Angela Lewis, you are the most beautiful thing in my life. You always have been. Not despite the grey hair and the wrinkles, but because of them. Because they're proof of every year we've survived together, every struggle we've overcome." "Then why exclude me tonight? Even with the surprise, why make me feel like I didn't belong at your celebration?" He hung his head. "Because I panicked. Because I'm a 65-year-old man who spent 40 years being good with numbers and terrible with emotions. I thought I could control everything, plan everything perfectly, and then..." He looked up at me. "I forgot that you don't need perfect. You need honest." "I don't trust you right now," I said. The words hung between us like stones. "I want to, but I don't." Victor's face crumpled, but he nodded. "I understand. Trust is built through consistency, not grand gestures. My mother used to say that." I pulled my hands from his. "You can take me to Paris and Tuscany and Greece, but if you're still keeping secrets, if you're still shutting me out of important decisions, then what's the point?" "You're right. I need you to talk to me about your health, about your fears, about everything." I stood up, putting more distance between us. "No more surprises, no more lies, even the ones you think are for my own good. I promise. And I need time, Victor. Time to process this. Time to figure out if we can recover from what happened tonight. The fear in his eyes was raw. Are you leaving me? No. The answer surprised us both. But I'm not okay either. We need help. Marriage counseling, maybe? I don't know. We've spent 38 years building patterns that clearly don't work anymore. The next morning, Melissa arrived at our house unannounced, her face stormy. Dad, what the hell? She didn't even sit down. Mom had to disguise herself to attend your retirement party? Do you have any idea how insane that sounds? Victor, who'd slept in the guest room, looked properly chastened. I know, I made a terrible mistake. You made Mom think you were cheating. Our son is on his way here from Seattle because he thinks you're getting divorced. We're not getting divorced, I said from the kitchen doorway. We're figuring things out. David arrived that afternoon. At 27, he looked so much like a young Victor, it hurt. He hugged me tightly, then turned to his father. You should have told her about your heart, Dad. I know. We're family. We don't keep secrets like that. I know. Over the next week, our children made their disappointment clear. But slowly, grudgingly, they began to understand. Victor's fear of mortality, his clumsy attempt at romance, the way good intentions can pave roads to disaster. Dr. Patricia Reynolds had kind eyes and an office full of plants. Victor and I sat on opposite ends of her couch. I'm still hurt, I told her during our second session. I still sometimes wonder if he's hiding something. That's normal, Dr. Reynolds said. Trust takes time to rebuild. I check his phone, I admitted, ashamed. When he's in the shower, I look at his texts. Do you find anything? Victor asked quietly. No, but I still look. Dr. Reynolds gave us homework. Share one truth every night before bed. Something real, something vulnerable. The first few nights were awkward. Victor admitted he was scared of dying. I admitted I was scared of being alone. He told me he sometimes felt like he'd wasted our best years. I told him I sometimes resented the sacrifices I'd made. But slowly, so slowly, we started communicating again. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of Villa Rosa in Tuscany, watching the sun paint the rolling hills gold and amber. Inside, Victor was attempting to make fresh pasta from scratch, cursing softly in English while an Italian chef tried not to laugh. Angela, does this look right? He held up something that vaguely resembled linguine. Looks perfect, I lied, smiling. We weren't fixed. Some nights I still woke up anxious, checking to make sure he was breathing beside me. Some days he still retreated into silence when he was scared. We were seeing Dr. Reynolds via video call once a week. We were learning. My phone buzzed. A photo from Melissa. Baby Emma, now 4 months old, sleeping peacefully. I'd almost thrown all of this away. Almost let fear and suspicion destroy what we'd spent a lifetime building. Victor came out to the balcony, flower in his hair, tomato sauce on his shirt. The chef says I'm hopeless. We're ordering pizza. I laughed and took his hand. Pizza in Tuscany sounds perfect. He pulled me close and we watched the sunset together. It wasn't perfect, neither were we, but we were here, trying, choosing each other one more day. I love you, Victor said softly. I'm sorry it took almost losing you to remember how to show it. I love you too. I squeezed his hand. But Victor, next time you want to surprise me? Yes? Just tell me. We'll be surprised together. He smiled, really smiled. Deal. The sun dipped below the hills. Tomorrow, we'd try the cooking class again. Next week, Paris. The week after that, who knew? We had time. Not forever, but enough. Enough to choose each other. Enough to keep trying. And really, isn't that what marriage is? Not perfect surprises or grand gestures, but two imperfect people showing up day after day, choosing love even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.